Love is in the air, YouTube, and what better time to learn to draw Cupid? This is Draw Cartoons, the place to learn to draw, and today we're covering the cheeky little cherub himself. Hit that subscribe button and the bell along with it to make sure you catch every tutorial, because you'll definitely learn something new in each and every one. Let me know in the comments what I should draw next, and hit the like button if you want to be struck by Cupid's arrow. Let's get to it, lovebirds. So as with pretty much every drawing that we do, we're going to start with the head. So draw a circle. It doesn't have to be completely perfect, but the rounder your circle, the more perfect your circle, the slightly better it will be. And when you've drawn that circle, we're going to add a little bump at the side here for the cheek. Our character is going to be facing this way, as you can see in the sketch beneath. So we're going to add a little cheek to this side to really kind of give that impression they are facing this way. And we're going to add a little bit here just for the brow as well. So to help us define the direction our character is facing in, it's helpful to draw another guideline which acts as the very, very center of the face that goes up like this, and notice it kind of bumps in a little bit here. If I hide the original preview just a little bit more, that might be a bit more clear. There we go. So there's a little bump here, more or less where the nose is going to be. So what we're going to do, like we do in most of our drawings, is we're going to sketch out all the basic shapes first and then start adding details to it. So we're going to add a small bit here for the neck, and draw a line across for the shoulders. We're going for a really big head on this character because they are a cherub. They're basically a baby with a bow and arrow and some wings. So we're going to add a very, very small set of shoulders here. Come down, draw another line for the waist. Again, it's very, very small. It's a little bit broader than the shoulders because the shoulders, we're going for very narrow shoulders on this character. And now for the legs, we're going to go for an interesting shape in the legs here, because why not challenge ourselves? You don't learn anything if you don't challenge yourself. So you're going to start with kind of an egg shape here, where the very, very top of this egg right here is pointing past the line that we drew for the waist here. See this guide here? So it's just kind of pointing past that as a kind of like guidance for the for where that egg shape is going. And that's actually where the leg is, or rather the thigh. The thigh is going to be hiding the shin. And now for this leg, all we're going to draw is a line that curves past this, goes underneath, and ends with a foot sticking out like that. Now, we may as well go ahead and sketch in the shape of the arms, because the arms are quite tricky to get right, but if you follow this guide, you'll be okay. So draw a small another egg shape here, right on the chest, sitting underneath that shoulder guideline and just to the left of the central guideline where the chest is. Once you've drawn that, draw a small line that juts out a bit to about here, and as long as you make this line, that's going to be where the elbow is. So right at the end here, that's the length of the elbow. So you don't want to come out too far, but you also don't want to make that too short. So try and get the same kind of length that I've gone for here. And then coming out of this shoulder, we're going to draw a line that comes out here, and again a small egg shape at the end to symbolize where the hand is going to go. That is a closed hand, and if you like, I've got a tutorial on how to draw hands, which I will link up there just now. You should see that card pop up just now. If you need a crash course on how to draw hands, that's the place to be. But I'm just going to quickly sketch out the shape of my bow here. So I'm going to give it a bit of a curve and then a spiral pattern at the ends, just to make it look nice and interesting and very, very fancy. And by the way, if at any point I'm going too fast in this tutorial, don't worry, you can always slow it down or pause it to catch up. I'm just used to drawing at a certain pace, but if it's too quick for you, don't worry, you have full control of the video, so you can always rewind. And all I've done here is I've added a little bit at the end sticking out past that hand for the head of the arrow, which of course, being a cherub, being Cupid, is a heart. Alright, so we've got our basic shapes down, so now we can start actually blocking things out and get our character done. So we'll start with the face. I think a good place to start is an ear over here, an ear over here, how about that? And then a small curve inside this with a little bump for the lobe. So you end up with this kind of like hook shape, or a double hook shape inside of the ear. It's a really quick and easy way to draw an ear. You can pretty much transfer that to any cartoon. So now we'll draw a nose, and all that is a very small bump like this that points upwards, and it's just to the side of that original guideline we drew to show where the center of the face is. And now for the mouth, we're going to go for that kind of face everyone pulls when they concentrate. So like the tongue is kind of poking up out of the lip, like they're really thinking hard about what they're doing. Let's draw a little small line in the middle of that tongue as well, very, very cartoony. And this line should end pretty much where our first guideline as part of that original circle ends up, and that's it, no further than that. And now we're going to have one eye closed, so I'm just going to bring a line in here, very close to that central guideline, and that's all it is, just a central line. And this is an eyebrow, just a kind of a block sitting on top of that line. And now for the other eye, well, he's going to have at least one eye open. So as he's aiming, we'll have this one nice and wide open, just a big curve that goes up over that guideline there, and we'll finish it off with a line at the bottom, as opposed to drawing a full circle like that. If we draw that line there, it makes the cheek look a bit bigger. And that's what we're going for in this character. They're a baby and they've got quite big cheeks, I guess, so we'll do that. And then obviously this pupil is pointing in this sort of direction over here. So we're going to have that eye sitting on that side of the pupil sitting on that side of the eye. So now for hair, now I have done a tutorial on how to draw hair as well. I will also link that up there for you to check out. It'll show you the basics of what I'm about to do, but basically what we want to do is pick a crown. We want to pick basically a parting for the hair, and I'm going to pick this spot here. And basically all I'm going to do is draw a few lines out from this point here. And we end up with this kind of wispy kind of shape going on here, but that's fine, that's exactly what we're going for. And from there I'm going to draw curls of hair coming away from this shape here. So over here I'm just going to have some fun with it, just draw lots of curves, lots of waves, as long as those waves are kind of originating from this spot here where those wispy lines come from. You can kind of do whatever you want with the hair. I'm going to make mine fairly long, fairly lengthy, but give it little flicks at the end so it looks a bit messy and curly, a bit unkempt. Okay, so just kind of curving away, all the hair is pointing away from that side of the face, all of it. Even the hair over here, that's all pointing towards the face. Okay, so just kind of have some fun with this bit, just draw those curves in, those waves. Bend the hair however you like, it's your drawing. And there we go, and you can see that's why we draw the eyes first, so that we can, when we come to drawing the hair, we make it so that it doesn't go too far over the eyes. Don't want to hide the eyes too much in this cartoon. And you can always add more detail if you want to this. You can really go crazy and just have a good time adding lots of detail to the hair if you really, really want to. I'm just going to kind of leave it at that because I want to move on. So now we'll get the hands out the way because the hands are tricky. So with this egg shape here, we're just going to draw in the wrist, follow that egg shape around until we get to the shoulder. And then bring it across and form 2 blocks like that, just 2 blocks. And then a smaller third block at the end, rounding out at the bottom of the egg. And what we have here are 2 fingers holding the very, very end of the arrow. So you can actually join that up with this line here, because the arrow is basically going to be following the shape of this arm here. But we're not quite done with this arm yet. All we have to do is follow this wrist shape, go in a little bit before bulging out, and remember what I said about the elbow ending there? You want to kind of curve this over the end of the elbow and bring it back in for the wrist, and make sure that wrist is nice and narrow compared to the rest of the arm. Give it a bit of an inward curve like that. See how this is thinner than this. And now we have that arm strained and ready to let go of the arrow. So now we may as well draw the other arm because hands are hellish to draw, and we may as well get these out of the way. So we're going to start with this hand actually over here. Now we need a hand that's holding onto the bow. So to do that, we're going to draw a line here for the base of the thumb, another small line here, and then another one that curves across the shape of the bow and back to the wrist. So it's a bit of a complicated shape, but basically this is part of the palm of the hand. We've got this thumb that crosses the shape of the bow, which is this, and then this line comes back to the wrist. And then all we have to do is draw the rest of the fingers holding the bow. So 1 bump, 2 bump, and 3 bumps. We've just got those fingers grasping the bow, and we can actually leave that hand there because the bow's details will actually go over those lines a little bit. So there's no point in drawing too much of that hand now. But what there is a point in doing is drawing the arm holding this hand, or with the hand at the end of it. So again, we're making that wrist nice and thin, and as the arm goes towards the shoulder, a little bit thicker, just because it's more kind of correct in terms of anatomy. It is a cartoon, so you can really go to town with anatomy if you want, but we're going to go for something that looks pretty good all around. So I'm just going to draw some lines either side. I've made that one a bit too thick there. Either side of the central guideline, keeping that central guideline more or less in the middle as kind of like a line of symmetry, and bring it down to the waist. Now I'm going to add a fancy looking Roman belt for this one just because I feel like it. So in the middle I'm going to draw a big spirally buckle, and you'll notice I've used spirals quite a lot in this drawing. The hair is a bit spirally, there are spirals at the end of this bow, and there's a spiral here, and that's just to kind of keep in theme with the character. I decided to draw spirals on this character just because I thought it would look good, and if we use spirals throughout, then we have some consistency in design, and that's a really, really easy way to make cartoons generally look good. So just to wind back here, all I'm doing is I'm adding, I guess the equivalent of a skirt or the bottom of a robe or a toga here. Not really sure what to call it, but it's just something to kind of drape over the legs. So I'm coming out like this, and I'm just going to draw some wavy lines that go up over this thigh, and then tuck in on the inside of this thigh. Okay? And then if you want, you can add some crinkles here, because we're actually not going to see the rest of that, as that foot's going to go over it there, but we'll draw that in just a second. I'm just going to draw the rest of this bit here, just some waves that kind of go up and down and tuck in behind that egg we originally drew. So now for the rest of this part of the robe here, we're going to follow it down under here and out like this, and bring it back a little bit, but just leave it there, because how far this goes depends on the other leg. We actually have to draw this leg first before we can really decide where this is going. So for now, we can just kind of bring this back up to the waist and leave it like that. We can always refine things later if we decide things don't look quite right, but I'm okay with the way that looks. So let's refine this egg, because right now Cupid's just got an egg for a leg, and that's not good enough, because that's not really much to walk on. So we'll add a little bit of thickness this line here, and then a bump for the knee, and then that's it. We just kind of follow the egg shape around. So all we did there really was add a little bump for the knee. And now for a foot underneath this. We're not going to see much of the calf, so we're just going to go ahead and draw the foot because of the way the leg's folded. So 1, 2, 3, 4 toes. Because as a cartoon, he can have as many or as few toes as we like, and then tuck that in under that leg there. Now that that foot has been drawn, we can draw the other leg, which sits underneath, and it always makes sense to draw things that are on top before drawing things that are underneath, especially in drawing cartoons. So basically, I'm going to follow the shape of that beginning guideline for the foot. Notice how I've come out a bit for the heel here, went in a little bit for the ball of the foot, and then for the toes, just 4 toes sticking out at the end, and then just follow that guideline back and keep that width pretty much consistent throughout. And now that I know where that is, I can link this up and close it off. How satisfying was that? Just kind of closing off that line and not having to think about it anymore. So now I've just noticed I've missed a little neck here, so either side of that guideline we'll add a couple of curves just to kind of show where the neck is, and it doesn't have to be as wide as the body. As a matter of fact, if you make it as wide as the body, our character's going to look a bit like a thumb, and that's not what we're going for here. So the bow is pretty much all that's left other than the wings, but we'll tackle the wings last. So the bow, our bow currently is just like a couple of sticks, and that's not really, it doesn't look like a very strong bow. So let's fix that. I'm going to add some feathery patterns around here. All that is just a couple of whooshy shapes that come up from above that hand, like that. And some underneath as well. This isn't anything in particular, I'm just kind of like spitballing ideas here, but I quite like the idea of some feathery look on the bow to go with the feathery wings he's going to have in just a moment. So again, that consistency of design thing, because we're about to draw those wings once we finish this bow. And again, for the rest of the bow, just going to kind of follow that central line as a line of symmetry, as a guide. Just draw a line either side of it, keep it nice and consistent, and as we get to the top, let's just refine that spiral a bit so it looks a bit more final. Okay, I'm actually going to thicken out this top bit again because I made that a little bit thin. There we go. And now we just have to do the same with the other side. So again, we'll bring it down either side of that central guideline, keep the thickness fairly consistent, and then draw a spiral at the end, because that's the design we're going for. So now for the arrow basically sits on this line here. So again, just thicken out this line a bit so it actually looks like there's something there. Because right now we just have this simple guideline, and it can actually rest along that hand there. And then at the end, we'll just refine that heart shape again, because it is just a weak sketch at the moment, so we'll give those lines a bit of strength. And then we'll add some feathers to the back of the arrow, because the arrow is not really going to fly without some feathers to actually kind of help it float through the air properly. And then those fingers there are just kind of holding the very, very back of the arrow, ready to let go. So what is a bow without a drawstring? So we'll come from these fingers here, and we'll draw as straight a line as you can up to this part of the bow up here. And again on this side, just kind of bring it down, really look like that bow's got a bit of torque. If you like, you can add to the design here, you can add a bit of the bow that comes down and connects to that string if you want, if you feel like it looks a bit wrong with the string just kind of hanging out there. But yeah, pretty much just draw 2 lines like that, very, very simple, very, very fine lines, and that's pretty much done. So we'll go for the wings now. So the wings are really, really fun to draw. We're going to draw, just like we did at the base of the bow here and here, we're going to draw bigger ones, way, way bigger ones that come out like this. Really, really big, expressive wings that are very cutesy in style. They're not realistic at all. You will never see a bird with wings that quite look like this. But that doesn't matter, because cartoons, we can simplify the way things look, and they can still look pretty fantastic. So these feathers are actually going to be hidden behind this bow a little bit. So I'm not going to stress too much about keeping these shapes perfect, because they're going to be hidden behind this hand and the bow. And then on the insides of these wings, we're going to add a few more feathers. So just kind of close them off with smaller feathers that sit along the where the bigger feathers join up, just to kind of make it look like it's layered and more interesting. And you can kind of build that up as it goes towards the back. We'll add a bit more hair here because we're missing a bit of detail there. There's just nothing there, so we may as well add some. And if you want, as he's a cherub, maybe you want to add some blush, so you can just add some little lines on the cheeks like that. Maybe some eyelashes as well, make the character a bit cuter. And there we go, our drawing of Cupid, a cherub, is pretty much done at this point. So I'm going to go over the lines I want to keep with my inks. You should do the same. Don't go over any of those guidelines. We don't need that central guideline in the face, for example, or that one either. So any of those guidelines can go, but everything else, make sure you keep that, don't erase them. And I'm going to go over mine with my pen too, so I'll see you in just a moment. Hey, when was the last time someone even used a bow and arrow? Isn't that a little bit outdated? Shouldn't Cupid have a gun or something instead? Like an M4 carbine that just causes infatuation with heart-shaped ammunition? On second thought, that's not charming at all and a really dumb idea. Let's stick to the archery set. Thanks for watching everyone, and hit that subscribe button to catch all of our future tutorials. You're bound to learn something new with Draw Cartoons. Until next time.